Huzzah and good day, my wonderful students. Today we will be discussing the Louisiana Purchase. Now in 1800, the U.S. owned territory up to the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River was the western border of the United States. The land that lay west of the Mississippi was controlled by Spain, and this included the city of New Orleans, which is right at the mouth of the Mississippi River where it empties into the Gulf of Mexico. The Spanish had allowed U.S. farmers west of the Appalachians to sail their goods down the Mississippi and trade them in the port of New Orleans. This trade was vital to the U.S. farmers as it was the fastest way to get their crops to market. Now, in 1802, the Spanish stopped letting U.S. goods move into New Orleans, and President Jefferson learned that Spain had secretly agreed to transfer the Louisiana Territory to France. Congress authorized the U.S. government to offer $2 million to France for New Orleans and West Florida. Now, Napoleon Bonaparte, who was the leader of France at this point, hoped to make empires in both Europe and the Americas. And control of the island of Saint-Domingue in the Western Hemisphere would have been an important naval base to work from for this goal. However, a slave revolt led by Toussaint L'Ouverture drove the French from the island of Saint-Domingue, and French attempts to reconquer the island were unsuccessful and became the country of Haiti. So this effectively turned off the ability of Napoleon to be able to create an empire in the Americas. Since he needed money for his war against Britain, and the Louisiana Territory wasn't useful to him anymore because he didn't have the island of Saint-Domingue, the French government told U.S. representatives Robert Livingston and James Monroe that the entire Louisiana Territory was for sale. They did not have the authority to purchase that much land, so Livingston and Monroe were concerned, but the deal was too good to pass up. So they agreed to buy the territory for a total of $15 million, $13 million more than they were actually authorized to spend. Now, President Jefferson, when he finally learned of this, was worried that the purchase wasn't legal because nothing in the Constitution said the government had the authority to buy this land, the strict constructionist argument that stated that the federal government only has the powers listed, and the purchase of land wasn't in there. And the reason why Jefferson hadn't found out immediately and why they hadn't contacted Jefferson about the offer was it would take too long, and they didn't want to lose the opportunity to get this. Because remember, at this time, instant communication wasn't a thing. They would have had to have written a letter to Jefferson and sent it back over the ocean and then had him write a response and send that back to France. In the end, Jefferson decided the treaty-making powers allowed for the purchase of this land. And the Louisiana Purchase doubled the size of the United States and gave it control of the Mississippi River and provided plenty of land for settlers. Now, Americans knew little of the land that was west of the Mississippi, and Jefferson wanted to see what $15 million had actually bought the nation. So Congress sponsored an expedition that would be led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Lewis and Clark put together a team of sailors, gunsmiths, carpenters, scouts, and a cook. They had hoped to find the Northwest Passage as part of their journeys. Now, if you recall, the Northwest Passage was the idea that there might be a water passage along the ocean north of North America. At this point, the whole area of the earth had not been mapped, and neither had that one. If they could do that, they could greatly shorten the distance for trade between Europe and Asia, because they would avoid having to go all the way down around the southern coast of South America. The expedition left in the spring of 1804, going up the Mississippi River. Lewis kept journals along the way, so we know what the trip was like. This is the key to history, these primary sources, these journals and documents that are left behind that allow us to piece what happened together. This expedition traveled almost 4,000 miles, reaching the Pacific Ocean, taking 18 months. And then they headed back east after they were done and returned by September of 1806. The expedition had taken over 2 years in total. They brought back a lot of valuable information on plants, animals, geography, and the people they'd encountered along their journeys, the different Native American groups. Now, Jefferson had also sent Lieutenant Zebulon Pike to lead expeditions west. Pike traveled to what is present-day Colorado and found a mountain that is today known as Pike's Peak. He also mapped part of the Rio Grande and traveled across northern Mexico in what is today southern Texas. Now, the Federalists were concerned that the westward expansion would weaken New England's power in the country. As a smaller country, New England had a sizable amount of power because it was a large chunk of the size of the United States. But as the U.S. grew, New England would no longer be as powerful in a much larger United States, and Federalists were concerned because that's where their base was. Now, some Federalists wanted Massachusetts to secede and form a Northern Confederacy that would include New York and New England. And they realized they would need a powerful friend in New York if this plan was to succeed. So they turned to Aaron Burr, who was vice president under Thomas Jefferson. Now, Alexander Hamilton had heard rumors of secession, and he had never trusted Aaron Burr. Hamilton accused Burr of plotting treason by supporting this group for secession, and so Burr challenged him to a duel with pistols. Now, dueling was illegal, but it was still popular at this time. And the two men dueled with pistols in July of 1804, and Hamilton was killed. This is how Alexander Hamilton dies. And Aaron Burr, because he's literally just murdered a man, flees to avoid arrest. And that is the end of this section.